Okay, hi guys, thanks for coming, and I'm super excited to speak here because actually this conference means a lot for me. 1 year ago I went to Building on Bitcoin conference. It was my first conference in this space. And I met a lot of interesting people there, and including my business partner Morris, that we are running company together with now, and also a couple team members that work with us. So it was definitely the life-changing event for me. And now, yeah, I'm here speaking in front of the audience. Awesome, right? And what we do, we basically do a secure hardware platform for Bitcoin, focusing on developers so that you could build your own hardware wallet according to your security model. But yeah, today I want to talk about certain challenges for hardware wallets and what we are missing and how we can get better in the field. So first, let's talk about what current hardware wallets can do. So normally they can spend funds, well, yeah, obviously keep our keys reasonably secret, spend funds, sign transactions, but only very specific transactions. So the constraints there are that all the inputs in the transaction has to be ours. So they has to be controlled by the keys on the hardware wallet. And then we can have an arbitrary amount of outputs, including the change address that also belongs to the user. Then we can receive funds, so we can show the address on the hardware wallet, and we kinda can do multi-sig. So this is already a little bit tricky depending on the hardware wallet. Some of them support it, some of them support it not so nicely, some of them don't. And obviously, yeah, we can also do shitcoins. So what would be nice to have on the hardware wallets? What tech we already using on our everyday life, but unfortunately it's not integrated with hardware. So obviously CoinJoin, and even though Udi said that Wasabi supports hardware wallet, I need to clarify a bit. It supports hardware wallets, but with hardware wallets you can not do CoinJoins. Yeah. And I will explain why in a second. Also, we have Lightning. That is awesome, but it is also pretty tricky. So with the CoinJoin, the trick is that we have a bunch of inputs and a bunch of outputs, and after the last talk, you probably already are experts in CoinJoin. But the crucial thing is that there are also external inputs. And you can steal the user funds using CoinJoin in the hardware wallets right now if you try to do a naive implementation. With the Lightning, it is also a little bit tricky because you need to parse transactions sometimes in pairs. For example, when you're opening the channel to another node, you need to sign the transaction only when the other party sends you the commitment transaction, such that you should be able to get your money back if the other party disappears. Then there are other things that would be nice to have, like custom scripts and sidechains, yeah, we use CoinJoin and Lightning now, so I will be focusing on that one. So first about the CoinJoin. Yeah, you already know the idea, so I could probably skip the slide, but still. So what we need to do, we first need to register the input to the CoinJoin server. Yeah, then we register the output, so we can commit to the participation in the round. Then the CoinJoin server prepares the unsigned transaction and sends it to us. We need to sign our inputs, and then we can send it back to the CoinJoin server to put all the signatures together and actually broadcast. The important thing here is that CoinJoin transactions fail sometimes. For example, if one of the parties fails to sign or gets disconnected or just tries to DOS the server, we need to rerun the whole protocol and do another CoinJoin, probably with the same input. So from the user perspective, it is pretty common to see several CoinJoin transactions in a row, maybe with the same inputs or maybe with the same amounts. So then here comes the attack. So let's say we want to steal the user funds and he is using a hardware wallet and we are a malicious Wasabi wallet. I mean, not the server, but the client application, the wallet application. So what we can do, we can put two identical user inputs, and in CoinJoin it is pretty common. You normally have identical UTXOs. That's the whole idea of CoinJoin. You put them in the inputs, and you put only one user output and another one an attacker output. And also you have inputs and outputs of our other participants. So how can the hardware wallet determine if the input belongs to the user or not? Well, right now, at the moment, there is really no way. So we need to kind of trust the software to mark the input that we need to sign. So what the software wallet can do then, he first sends us the CoinJoin transaction to the hardware wallet and marks only the first input as ours. So the hardware wallet looks, okay, there is one input of 1 Bitcoin, output of 1 Bitcoin, so we are mixing 1 Bitcoin with the 0 fees. Awesome. We display it to the user is happy, he confirms, we get the signature for the first input. Then the software wallet pretends that the CoinJoin transaction failed and sends to the hardware wallet the same transaction, but this time marking the second input as ours. So again, hardware wallet doesn't have a way to determine which input is his, because we have the public keys that are derived from BIP32 derivation path with a bunch of different indices. So brute forcing and trying to kind of keep the list of all possible public keys is just unfeasible, especially on the hardware that is, well, not as efficient as our laptops. So then in this situation, again, hardware wallet thinks that everything is fine, displays another transaction, user thinks that, okay, something failed, we sign, and oops, now we got the transaction signed with 2 user inputs signed, where he spent 2 Bitcoins and he got back only 1 Bitcoin. So basically we stole half of the user funds. So how can we fix it? We need a reliable way to determine if the input belongs to the hardware wallet or not. And this is what we started developing with Andrew Chow and with Trezor guys. And it is kind of proof of ownership and not ownership. So Trezor guys are awesome, just a comment. Okay, so what can we do? So we can make a proof for every input, and we need to sign this proof with the key that controls the input. So yeah, again, the idea is to prove that you can spend and the proof that you have or you own or you don't own the key. So basically this proof consists of 2 parts. First one is the proof body and the signature. So the signature should use the key from controlling the input, and it can be used also to commit to this whole CoinJoin transaction. So basically we can use the signature to prove to the CoinJoin server that yes, we have all necessary information to sign this input. And it prevents, it helps CoinJoin server to defend against denial of service attacks, because then the attacker that tries to attack the CoinJoin server needs to spend his own UTXOs, and yeah, obviously he has a limited amount of UTXOs. Then the whole proof can be signed only by the hardware wallet itself. And yeah, we also have this unique transaction identifier that can be, well, anything, probably from round of the CoinJoin server and the ID of the CoinJoin server, that makes it not replayable, such that the attacker cannot take this proof and send it to another CoinJoin round, for example. So this proves that we own the input. And then about the proof body. What we can do, because the problem arises from the fact that we have this crazy derivation path. So if we could put some information in there that we would be able to detect afterwards, then we would be safe. So we would just verify this proof and see, okay, the proof body is the one that we wrote. So what we suggest is to use the unique identity key. For example, it can be a normal Bitcoin key with a fixed derivation path, and we just HMAC with transaction ID and output such that it looks random for other parties. Then what the hardware wallet will see, for every input we have this proof, and the hardware wallet verifies the signature and tries to generate the proof body. And then he just compares the proof body to what he generated and what is there. And if they match, then obviously this input belongs to the hardware wallet. And you cannot really fake it, because the hardware wallet is the only thing that can generate this proof. Having this will already fix the issue with this attack, and basically will make the CoinJoin working with hardware wallets, but maybe there will be other application, and if we are developing some kind of standard proof of ownership, it makes sense to extend it a little bit more to, well, other scripts. For example, to multi-signature, or when we have Schnorr, we will probably have music, where we have the key aggregation. So again, it will look like the single key, but in reality they are different. So for example, for the multi-signature scheme, what we can do, we can replace just this simple signature to actual witness, where we sign still the proof body, but we sign it with multiple co-signers. So let's say we have 2 or 3, then we need at least 2 signatures from different hardware wallet, and we combine them into the witness, and then everyone can verify, like all participants of this CoinJoin transaction can verify that, yeah, this guy definitely has enough keys to sign this input. And for the proof body, it can be also pretty easy. You can just take these proof bodies of different parties and just concatenate them. There are a few problems, though, that we didn't solve yet, and maybe you have a bright idea, so if you do, then talk to me afterwards, is in particular the last one. What if we have Schnorr? If we have Schnorr, we can use the key aggregation, so our signature will be a signature from the single key, but this proof body will be larger. And it is really a leak of privacy for CoinJoin, because every participant in the CoinJoin transaction will see that, okay, this guy has an extremely fat proof body, so like 3 times larger than others. Okay, I will remember that. Then on another CoinJoin round, we see, okay, there is another input with the same big thing. So basically, it just by having the variable size on this proof body, it makes it, well, you leak the privacy. You are always detectable on the set. Then another problems are that you actually need to send full previous transaction to the hardware wallet. That is kind of okay, but yeah, in order to verify the signature, you need to know the public key. To know the public key, you need script up key. For script up key, you need a transaction, and you need to verify the transaction hashes to the transaction ID that you use in the input. Yeah. And also, it requires verification of the scripts on the hardware wallet that currently is not available anywhere, and it can be a little bit problematic because maybe there will be a bug, and then you will be able to generate a proof that is valid on hardware wallet but not valid for CoinJoin transaction, for example. So this kind of things. But for a single key use case, I think that we are more or less ready just to deploy it and run it, and then we will be able to use CoinJoin with hardware wallets. Then the next challenge is the Lightning Network. And here we have a few problems. So first, we need to be connected all the time in order to route the payments and in order to, well, basically receive and maybe send. And also there are time locks everywhere. So we need to react in time. And also we need to monitor blockchain because we need to know if the channel is still open or closed or whatsoever. So first, let's roughly look at the secrets in Lightning. So there are plenty of them, and this is just a simplified diagram. So what we have is, yeah, obviously the key that we use to fund the Lightning channel. Then we have the funding keys that are constantly used to create new commitment transactions to update the channel. Then we have revocation secrets that we give out to other party every time when we invalidate previous state, such that they can punish us if we misbehave, and vice versa. And we obviously have the keys that will store our bitcoins when we close the channel, either mutually or unilaterally. Imagine we have a hardware wallet that can store all these keys. Is it enough to have security? Well, not really, because if you are using the hardware wallet, then we assume that our node is hacked, right? And probably the attacker also has other nodes in the network, so he can play some tricks with us. So the first one is he can open the channel with us, send us the funding transaction, we send back the commitment transaction, good, we think that the channel is open. I mean, we live on the hardware wallet, so we have a kind of limited information about the blockchain. So we think that the channel is open, and then what the attacker does, he uses this virtual non-existent channel to route through us. So he transfers Bitcoin in this non-existent channel to us. We automatically forward it further with already our real channel and real Bitcoins, and yeah, we lose Bitcoins this way. So obviously, first thing that we need to do, we need a proof that the channel was indeed open. So this is easy, just an SPV proof that the transaction is included in the blockchain. But it is enough? Not really, because what the attacker can do, he can open the channel, show us the proof, and then instantly close the channel unilaterally. So for unilateral close, we don't need to talk to the hardware wallet anymore. So in this situation, again, he waits for this time lock, and then the channel doesn't exist anymore, and he can do the same attack again. So obviously we need to pass all the blocks to the hardware wallet. Unfortunately, we don't have a way to kind of prove that the transaction is not included in the block. Commitment of this reverse boom filters would help a lot, but people don't like SPV and light clients, so yeah, I'm not sure that we will get it, but it would help for the hardware wallet, because then we don't need to parse the full block and see if the channel was closed or not. We can just run it through the filter. So we do need to add the block parsing. And then there is another trick. What if the attacker starts delaying the blockchain? So he's sending the blocks with a certain delay and builds up this delay up to this lock time, let's say 1 or 7 days, I don't know which one is correct now. And then again, as the hardware wallet sees the past, the attacker can do the same attack again using the closed channel that is still open in the past. So this means that on the hardware wallet we also need to add the real-time clock. And it's good that we have timestamps in the Bitcoin blocks. They are defined within a certain range, like ±2 hours, but for our application it is fine. So if we see that the blocks are delayed by more than 2 hours, then we can notify the user somehow and basically stop signing stuff, stop routing transactions. And finally, it would be nice to have some backup communication channel if the attacker tries to completely disconnect our hardware wallets. Yeah, so Watchtower could work, and or any kind of notification to the user that something is going wrong here, you need to take an action. It can be done also through the node itself, so like you send the data to the Watchtower and you ask the Watchtower to confirm that it actually got this data. Yeah, so this is like in the future. So right now, well, there are too many changes in the hardware wallets to instantly support Lightning. So can we do something now? I mean, we have hardware wallets, we have Lightning. It's kind of dumb that we cannot benefit from the security of hardware wallets in any sense, even a little bit. So what I suggest is the following. First, there are some keys that we can already put into the hardware wallet. For example, the key that we use to open the channel can go there. Also, all the keys that will be controlling the Bitcoins when we close the channel can also be on the hardware wallet, because we can define them initially when we open the channel with another node. Basically, we can say that, okay, I'm opening the channel with you, but if I will try to close it, please make sure that my Bitcoins are going to this address. And then, even if our node is hacked, but we are talking with a honest node, then there is no way to close the channel to the attacker's address. They will always get back to our wallet. Still, there is a way to lose funds through Lightning payments. So what we can do instead, because yeah, the funding, private keys, and the revocation secrets are still on our online node. So what we can do, we can connect only to, let's say, trusted nodes with some additional functionality. So we drop all the routing functionality. We only will be able to send and receive. But yeah, let's say I connect to Blockstream, to Async, to Bitrefill, and I kind of trust these guys. So I can also ask them to route the payment through them only if I send together with this payment the text message signed with the hardware wallet. So basically, as the only way to lose the funds is through routing through these nodes the Lightning payment, what we can enforce is to get a message signed on the hardware wallet with, let's say, the key that we use to open the channel. And this message can be actually verified. All hardware wallets support message signing. It can be something like, yes, I do want to send 1 millibitcoin to, well, not to, but with the payment hash of blah. And then you send it together with your HTTC offers, and your trusted node verifies that and routes the payment. You can still easily receive the payments without interaction with the hardware wallet because, well, basically you have, well, the incoming routing request will be routed by the trusted node, and you benefit a little bit by the by having the hardware wallet. Also, it may be not super convenient to ask the to get your hardware wallet every time when you want to pay for a coffee somewhere. So what you also can do, you can just sign a message and define the limit. Like, okay, please, guys, let me spend 10 millibitcoins today. So route the payments up to this amount. And also sign with the same key and send it to this trusted node. And yeah, they will enforce that you maximum will lose this amount. So it still relies on the trusted nodes to behaving properly, but at least I would say that there is some additional security that we can gain. Okay, yeah, I actually didn't expect that I will finish in 22 minutes, so we probably have some time for questions, but that's basically what I have for today. Yeah. Two small comments. I forgot, sorry. Yeah, so the first one, this structure is pretty easy to monetize because basically as you are the trusted node that is routing payment for the user with this additional functionality, you can just charge reasonably high fees for this service. And the second one, unfortunately, we probably don't have time and capacity to implement all this stuff by ourselves. So if you want to help or if you want to do it by yourself, please talk to me. We will be glad to help. Yeah, now I'm done. No questions. Yay. I overloaded you a bit. Oh, Kalle.
So I'm a little confused about the initial thing you're talking about. Yeah, the proof thing. Can't the attacker just replace the proof body for your other input and tell you to sign again, and you won't notice that it's yours?
So the proof body is signed with the signature, right?
Yeah.
How can we replace the proof body? It will.
Well, you can just say that it's not signed yet.
No,
That guy hasn't signed yet. You sign first.
Well, this is what happens on the registration step. So, like, you never sign the transaction that doesn't have all proofs valid. Yeah.
Okay, so you have all the proof bodies as a
So
commitment.
basically, when you're registering your input to the CoinJoin server, the first thing that you need to do, you need to sign this proof that you will be able to spend, and also you can include this proof body that allows you to determine if it is yours or not. Then all these inputs together with the proofs are assembled on the CoinJoin server, and then when the transaction is ready to be signed, everyone will get all these proofs. So everyone has to verify that the proofs are correct and check if the proof body is actually generated by the hardware wallet, let's say.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. So then I suppose Charles can speak after me. Yeah, so if you have any questions and you don't want to say it in public because they are, I don't know, too smart, and you don't want me to look dumb, then talk to me afterwards during the break. Thanks.